Welcome to Logos Media's UnSpun episode number 138. I'm here with Lloyd De Jongh, and we are broadcasting on Patreon tonight because somebody had my live streaming on YouTube shut down, presumably Joe Rogan, for posting my interview with Alex Jones yesterday to my YouTube channel. So we have to get that cleared up. And of course, from what I understand, Rogan has the ability to have people's channels shut down. My YouTube channel has been shut down twice ever. And the first time my whole YouTube channel was shut down, this time the live streaming was shut down, both times by none other than Joe Rogan, apparently. And so anyway, Lloyd, welcome back to the show. And if we don't get this figured out, if it's not working properly here, we will get it uploaded to YouTube as well, and hopefully get any junk edited off from the beginning of this episode.
Okay, no. Well, thank you again for having me back, Jan. I appreciate it. Okay, yeah, so anywhere you'd like to start, any questions or comments based on last week's episode you want to go through?
Well, yeah, let's, we do have a little bit of an outline there. Why don't we start off with a little recap of the 5 books of Islam?
Okay, so yeah, that did come up in the discussions. People were asking me some questions. And that was one of the things people hoped that we could cover again. So everyone is familiar with the Islamic Quran, which is the main authority, the main religious authority within Islam. However, it doesn't stand on its own. It's not sufficient on its own. It is necessary, but not sufficient. The Quran is a small book, roughly as long as the Christian New Testament. It's about 155,000 words. However, it is supported by what is called the Sunnah. The Sunnah is essentially the life of Muhammad. So the Sunnah is made up of what's called the Hadith collections, which are short stories, little short paragraphs about the sayings and the deeds, the traditions, typically it's called, of Muhammad. So Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim are the 2 most popular, or the 2 most authentic and sound collections of the stories of Muhammad. That they total well over 4,000. Then we also have what is called the Sira, or the Sira, the life of Muhammad. So that is his official biography, which is where one finds his political actions, his life as a political and military leader is described in the Sira. And then we also have 2 other collections of books. One would be the Tafsir, which literally means interpretation. And we would see that as exegesis, in terms of Christian exegesis, which explains, so the Tafsir collections go through different verses of the Quran and explains them, provides more detail. Not all of the collections cover all of the chapters or go into much detail. Some are very short, some are very detailed, some don't have anything about a particular verse in the Quran. Ibn Abbas, Ibn Kathir, and Ibn al-Jalalain are 3 of the most popular, most authentic, and most authoritative Tafsir collections. And then, of course, we have the Sharia. Islamic Sharia is not just the legal system, it is the entire way of life of Islam. Islam is a social system, it is a legal system, it is a system of law, a system of warfare. It covers the entire, it's a civilization. And a great deal of this is found in the Sharia, which is the codification of the life of Muhammad, the will of Allah, the will of Muhammad. And the most common, and there are numerous Sharia manuals, but the most common Sharia manual, and this question did come up, is what is called Reliance of the Traveler, also known as in Arabic as the Umdat al-Salik. But the Reliance of the Traveler, if you look for that, that is the most common, the most sold, the most bought, the most owned, the most recommended.
Just be careful banging on your table there.
Sorry, my bad, yeah. My mic is desk mounted. So it is the most common Sharia manual in the Sunni world. The benefit is of this book that it is a single volume as opposed to multiple volumes. It is readily available, and it is a very complete manual. Some Sharia manuals focus on narrow topics, narrow subjects. This one is a very thorough, very complete Sharia manual. So those are the books that one has to study or have available and reference when discussing Islam.
All right. And sorry, and I also wanted to mention, and I forgot to say this, last week we had an extremely large amount of name calling, et cetera, at Lloyd, and nobody was providing any real counter arguments. The only two people that were polite were Bahare and Abu, and that's really it. And Abu provided some good citations that actually led to a lot more research that we're going to be presenting today. But the rest of everyone, it was a really disgusting behavior. We had quite a number of trolls creating fake accounts, name calling. I don't even want to repeat most of it, but it was really immature behavior. If you need to name call and lie and create fake accounts to make your point, you should already right there be questioning if what you're doing is in righteousness and in truth, and if you're following Logos. And if you're doing that behavior, it's clearly not. And so, please, everyone, let's, act like mature adults and not behave like children in the sandbox, name calling, etc. This is not the place for that. So, my apologies to Lloyd for, people's behavior last week. And reading all of that stuff. It's just been atrocious. But anyway, let's get into the claim that the Saudis are Jewish and they're spreading false Islam.
Okay, sorry, there was significant lag there. The signal was very poor there for a while. The last thing I heard you say was Jewish and spreading false Islam.
Yeah, just our first point there. Let's talk about the claim that the Saudis are Jewish and they're spreading false Islam.
Okay. Now, on that point, there were significant comments made by people in the YouTube comments, Facebook comments that, these sources are false. Well, these are the only sources that are available. At one point, I quoted a single verse, but I got it from 16 different Qurans, 16 major Quran editions, and I was told that these are all false. Now, these Qurans are being sold. If they're false, why is there a complaint or such an outcry with me reading from them, as opposed to people complaining about these publishers printing what are supposedly false Qurans, which are spreading falsehoods? So claims like this were very, very common. If Saudi is Jewish, who knows? Hey, I don't know. And I was told that they're spreading false Islam. Well, if they are, why is there concern with me quoting from the text that they put out, rather than people complaining about the fact that these publishers and these authors are writing fake Islam, fake Qurans, and spreading false Qurans and spreading false Islam? These claims, I don't think they stand up, but there were these really ridiculous defenses that just made no sense. And
we just lost you there, Lloyd. I just lost your signal. Hello, Lloyd. Where'd you go? Boy, what an evening! My goodness.
Insufficient.
Lloyd, we lost your signal there for a little bit. You're going to have to repeat about the last 20 seconds. My apologies.
Okay. Yeah, I'm also encountering streaming issues here. Yeah. So I'll go back. So the question was the Quran. I was told that by numerous people that the Saudis are not representative of true Islam. If that's the case, why is there no outcry about them? There's an outcry about me reading the Qurans and things that they publish, but that seems a little hypocritical. And then I was told that besides the Quran, all the other books are irrelevant. If that is the case, where in the Quran is the procedure for the 5 daily prayers, which is one of the pillars of Islam? If the other books in Islam are unnecessary, that's the Hadith, the Sira, Tafsir, the Sharia, if those are unnecessary, then please show me where the description of the procedure for the 5 daily prayers is to be found in the Quran.
Yep. Just lost you again.
And then also I was told that,
we just
it's
lost you again for a few seconds, about 5 or 7 seconds. Boy, what a tough evening tonight.
Yes. Yeah. I just mentioned again, where are the 5 daily prayers in the Quran if the other books are supposedly irrelevant? I was told the Sharia is irrelevant. I was told so many things are just not important. So, that only the Quran. So then why are these books being printed? And if they're relevant, why is there no outcry about these books that are supposedly irrelevant?
I just lost you again, Lloyd.
And well, if there is no orthodoxy, who's to say that anyone is
Lloyd,
doing this?
I just lost you again for like 5 seconds. We're having real technical trouble tonight with signal and whatnot.
Should I maybe? I mean, it would take me a while take me about a minute to reboot and get everything set up again. If I were to do that, I mean, that might be an option.
You can try rebooting, and I'll be right here for when you get back if you want to do that really fast, and I'll just sit here and talk to the audience. We've got 6 or 7 people in there right now, apparently.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry about these technical issues as well. Let me try that.
All right. And sorry, everybody. We'll see you back here in a minute or two.
I'm on SSD, so it should come back up quickly. Thanks.
Yep. So, wow, what a headache today, folks. Again, the live streaming on my YouTube channel was shut down for a quote-unquote violation of YouTube's community guidelines for uploading my interview with Alex Jones about Joe Rogan to my channel, and and telling people not to do drugs. That's apparently a violation of community standards now, as well as I've noticed that I've been having posts from Facebook and YouTube demonetized for speaking out against pedophilia. I want to show people this here as well so that they can see how much my channel is getting demonetized just for exposing this pedophilia stuff. But just so people can see here, these are shows that have been demonetized here. So Adam Green demonetized, Michelle Cretella on exposing the transgender movement, demonetized, Noah Church about internet porn, demonetized, about abortion culture, demonetized, and De Jongh's last show last week, demonetized, and then my AJ interview removed for inappropriate content. This is no joke, folks. They are actually censoring this stuff. And if we scroll down here, we can see that the Hands Up show with Bob Schlanker exposing pedophilia, demonetized. My interview with Mark Janssen, demonetized for exposing the transsexual agenda behind that. So this is the kind of stuff that's going on. The episode about 9/11, demonetized. Even the episode about the trivium method, demonetized. Confirmed by a manual review, the trivium method is worthy of getting things demonetized. Can you point your camera down there? There you go. Great. And so, this is the kind of stuff that's going on. Welcome back again. Hopefully, things are going to go a little bit better here. Your lighting seems a little bit off now. I don't know if you changed something there. But
I'm not sure it is.
All right.
It's still the same, but...
Yeah. All right. So let's just continue on. I appreciate you rebooting. It seems to be better so far. And anyway, it says Poland is not great for internet access. Yes, Lloyd is in Warsaw, Poland. So we're just working with it. Last week, we didn't have any problems during the live show. But anyway, here we go again. So let's
we had a
see.
Skype connection earlier that was perfect.
What's that? What did you say?
Skype connection earlier that was perfect.
Yeah, we did, and if we have to, Skype is just a problem because we can't have it side by side. So apparently, and James is asking if my YouTube channel, No More YouTube, apparently unless I can get this ding against my account undone, my YouTube live streaming is off for the next 90 days. So whomever did that, thanks a lot. it's the utmost cowardice. And, it's just absolutely ridiculous. It looks like we have, at least 7 people in there now watching live, etc. I don't like the view in here either. I can't make the stream screen any larger either. But anyway, let's keep going. Where in the Quran are the procedures for the 5 daily prayers?
Yeah, I think that's a valid question, because many people told me in the debates online that that the Quran is the only necessary book. The others were essentially irrelevant. So if it is all that is needed, that should be an easy thing to quote. Now, not one person has done so yet, but I hope I will get that answer. Also, I was told that everything is a matter of opinion. Well, if that's so, then where's the orthodoxy? How can any one person say that his view is correct and any other person is wrong if there is no single orthodoxy? It's just a matter of opinion. Okay, so it's just those things I thought that were relevant to raise. And was there anything that you wanted to kick off with, or anything that you felt was important based on audience feedback before I continue?
Oh, goodness. Well, I mean, why don't we address Lars's comments from last week? And okay, so Bahare was perfectly respectable. Abu was respectable. Lars got respectable hours later. And, why don't we address Lars's comments if you have those handy?
No, I don't. I can barely remember. It was a lengthy discussion with him.
He was saying that you were talking about Allah and female goddesses.
Okay, to get to that point, just to keep it short and get out the way. So Allah means the God. It is a descriptor. It is a generic term. It is not a specific name. So Allah, within that region, that part of the world, was the Nabatean God. Right? So people would say that that particular God of that village was the Allah for that village, the God for that village. And then he raised the issue of additional gods. Now, note that Allah is the Nabatean God. Nabatea would be what we know today as Petra. And Allah had a wife, Allat. That was the female counterpart. And so that is the feminine form of Allah. And of course, they had 2 daughters, Al-Manat and Al-Uzza. So just something that people might want to note. And they actually found in Quran 53, verses 19 and 20. And those are also known as the satanic verses. You might remember Salman Rushdie was some couple of decades ago, there was a death fatwa given to Salman Rushdie over his book, The Satanic Verses. But that's a separate issue. I don't want to get involved into that discussion now. But I will mention it from a historical point of view. There is also a generic Hebrew name for the Christian God, not his actual name, but a generic term. So, and this term in the Old Testament is Elohim. Allah, Elohim. And what is interesting is that in the Hebrew, Eloi is singular. The dual form is Eloha, and Elohim means 3 or more, which would, even in the Old Testament, going back thousands of years, imply the Trinity, that God is 3.
Absolutely.
But do notice that the verb that accompanies Elohim is always singular, masculine, singular. So every prophet used that name, Elohim, and it is mentioned over 6,000 times, I believe over 6,800 times in the Bible. It doesn't appear once in the Quran, never used once by Muhammad. Just wanted to mention that point that I thought might be of interest, since we were discussing the name.
Yeah, interesting. And of course, while the Trinity, the Holy Trinity is not supported in Islam, they ironically do teach the trivium in mosques, and the trivium, as I've discussed often, is the Holy Trinity, and it should lead one to Logos. But if you don't have access to the text to understand what Logos is, you're going to, not be able to figure this stuff out, I think. Is that correct?
I think fair enough. Don't forget that we, from a Western point of view, from a Christian point of view, one is allowed, the Bible is self-contained. One can read it. I don't want to make a religious discussion, but just make a distinction here in that you're allowed to do exegesis with the Bible. This is discouraged within Islam. This is actually, now that you've mentioned it, I can actually get the textual references, but but this is discouraged within Islam. You notice there was always the appeals to authority in the discussions. You need to get a scholar. You need to ask a scholar. You need to get a scholar. You need to check with a scholar.
Wasn't that the constant? One of the major attacks from last week's show was we needed to have a proper scholar on to discuss Islam. Whereas, we can go through and discuss the Bible point by point, line by line, and we don't need to be an expert to do so. We can read what it says. We can look in Strong's Concordance and look up the meanings of words. We can go into John 1:1 and look up the word and realize that it's logos, which is where we get reason and logic and understanding from, etc. And the word or logos is God.
Right. So there are differences within the way that the Quran is approached, or the religion's approached within Islam and within Christian doctrine. So I just wanted to make that point without, in fact, I mean, I prefer to talk about things when I've done some preparation, so I can go straight to the references. But yeah, there was the constant refrain: you need a scholar, you need a scholar, you need a scholar, and that's very different from the way that we typically approach things. Okay, so some of the things I wanted to talk about, I think that you mentioned, was talking about jihad.
Well, what? Why don't we get into how many times is Jesus mentioned in the Bible versus Muhammad?
Okay, so yeah, last week we discussed this briefly. Muhammad is mentioned 4 times in the Quran, and Jesus is mentioned 93 times.
And we also discussed last week that this is the Quranic, the Islamic interpretation of Jesus, and not the Christian understanding of Jesus.
For the most part, certainly, yes. The version of Jesus that we find in the Quran is taken from the infancy gospel of Thomas, which is heretical. As I mentioned, to recap.
Yeah, that's a Gnostic text.
Correct. So Muhammad is married to his first wife by an Ebionite priest, man called Waraka. And the Ebionites believed that Jesus was a man, just a man. And these teachings that he received from this monk or priest made its way into the Quran. So there are numerous of the heretical stories in the Quran that's littered with them that are considered heretical then, or at least are considered heretical today, were heretical then, that no one takes seriously, have never become Orthodox Christianity.
And I'm just going to let people know here that it's likely that for the next 3 months, and I was planning on moving the show to Patreon anyway so that we could get more funds to do research, because they've been trying to push me out. But it's likely that for the next 3 months, we'll be having to do the show through Patreon. So I appreciate everyone's support on here. I've made this episode free tonight, but I won't be able to afford to do that every night, So anyway, let's go to the next point here. Let's get into the Quran QA site, and they have 11 million hits per day. Why no outcry about that website? And because we quoted and showed on screen last week exact Quranic quotes. And so why are people attacking you and not the Islam QA website?
Yeah, so some of the information that I receive is taken from Islam QA. And I showed those links last night live as I was working. Now, they get on average 11 million hits a day, and they peak at 16 million hits a day. Now, I was told that my information is false. Many people just simply made those broad statements. And this is one of my sources. It is the largest Islamic website in the world in terms of its questions and answers. And also it issues fatwas, essentially a ruling from a cleric on an issue, a holy ruling, a religious ruling on an issue. So if they're putting out 11 million bad rulings a day,
You
or
mean
if they're putting out bad info, why are people
not
complaining
a
about
bad
me
rulings a
reading
day?
those rulings?
I don't think you mean 11 million
Yeah.
bad rulings a day. Or
Oh,
you?
no, sorry, hit today. My bad. Yeah, my bad. Yeah.
All right.
So if people are taking, if this site's getting 11 million hits, that's 11 million people potentially reading false information. Why is they concerned with me reading what they're saying rather than the fact that this website is filled with falsities? If that is the case, shouldn't the issue and the concern be directed at the website? Why is the concern with me reading what they're saying, which are public statements?
Yeah, that's a great point, and of course, nobody, what we had was people saying, one of the attacks that I got was that we are left-brained, and you have to have wisdom to understand that. Well, what is wisdom? Wisdom comes from understanding grammar, logic, and which is knowledge. Grammar, logic is knowledge and understanding, and expressing it through wisdom. And these people are name calling rather than using wisdom. And if they have so much wisdom, why do they need to name call at you for quoting these very texts off the Islam QA website? I mean, it makes no sense. So if there is a problem with the text, people need to question the text. If there is a problem with the Islam QA website, people need to question that. They shouldn't be attacking us for citing and quoting verbatim these texts. So
And also, how is every single English Quran translation somehow wrong? Everyone was lambasting all of the quotes I'm making. I use 16 different Qurans. How can they all be wrong? How can the authors, the publishers, the printers all be wrong?
Right, and my Tajweed Quran is signed off by the heads of several Islamic countries and Islamic leaders at several. The back of the Quran has, and I left it upstairs again. I'm going to have to go run up and grab it again. But the back of my Quran has certifications that it's a certified, accurate translation.
Correct.
So,
hence, I use these authoritative sources.
Right, and
also,
so again, this goes back to, if the translations are incorrect, the people, the publishers of these Qurans need to be questioned. The people who certify these Qurans need to be questioned. But then, the next question is, what is the proper Quran then? Which one is correct? And so, yes, and people are asking if it's still live. Yes, we're still live. And I think, I'm going to let you talk for a minute. I'm going to go run up again and grab my Quran. So I apologize for that. Go ahead while you answer.
Okay, the point to note is that 85% of Muslims are not Arabic speaking. So these people then have to utilize these translations. So if this is the case, why was there such a complaint with me reading from, and I use 16 different translations. At one point in one of the discussions on YouTube, I quoted from 16 different Qurans, the same verse. And the person I was speaking with did not accept that. Now, why would that be the case? So again, if we cannot trust these Qurans, why is the concern with me quoting from this Quran rather than going to the source and saying you are printing falsities? Are these claims true? Because obviously these claims were not substantiated, were not verified, but these claims were made. And I think this is a form of dishonest argumentation.
I'm just showing some of the certifications in the back. This is, again, the Tajweed Quran, okay? And this is just some of the certifications in the back here. And there's quite a few of them. There's more. So if these Qurans are incorrect, is it our fault for reading them? Or is it the fault of those who certified them and published them? This one is, let's see, Damascus, Syria, P.O. Box 30268 by Dar al-Marifa. And, I mean, here's the certifications that this is a valid translation of the Quran, so why is there a problem if we are reading directly from these official certified translations? And again, every page in this Quran has the transliteration on this side here, and then the Arabic on this side with the English all down this side here. Sorry, the light there.
Yeah.
But you can see the English, the Arabic, and then the transliteration there. And then it's even got the breakdown of how to pronounce the Arabic there.
Yeah. So I thought so these were just to answer some of the things that were said over the last week. And I think these are relevant. Also, I did ask someone question some of the sources I was using. And I said, so which source would you, in terms of, this was the Sharia manual again, I said, which one would you utilize? I'm using the most common one in the Sunni Islamic world. This is the most commonly available, the one that most people have. And he then sent me a link to 61 different books. And so I asked him which one. He hasn't replied. So he says, yeah, why don't you use these? And these are 61 different books, and I don't know which one. So, you know, so yeah, we're using those that are commonly available, that are authoritative, and not some obscure text. Okay, so I think, did we answer that, Jan?
Yeah, let's see here. Let's see. Why don't we go into jihad and the definitions?
Okay, so this is a very, very common contentious issue. Are you able to see my screen? I need to share my screen, right? Can I do that for a minute?
Hit the green button down there on the bottom.
Okay, so that's the main screen. I'm going to share. Okay, so just for a minute. Okay, okay.
There you go.
See that? Right. I'm going to, okay. This is a common meme I found this on Facebook. Okay, someone I know posted this today. And this is, what is jihad? The word jihad does not translate to holy war, but originates with the root jahada, which means to strive or struggle. So I want to discuss some of the typical, shall we say, propaganda that is pushed. Now, I did state that jihad, that Islam is divided into two obligations: fard ayn, personal obligation, and fard kifaya, communal obligation. We will get into that in a little bit more detail in a minute. Jihad is fard kifaya, a communal obligation. It must always be pursued by a small minority. Okay, so this says strive or struggle. Okay, let's talk of the lesser jihad and the greater jihad. Okay, the lesser or combative jihad is the act of fighting in defense for freedom of religion and basic human rights, while the greater or spiritual jihad is striving against one's ego and lower desires. So this is a fairly common meme. This is a fairly common definition that is passed around. Let us have a look. So I went to these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So these are definitions taken from 7 different lexicons, Arabic, English lexicons. So I want to go through that now. So notice here, jihad, war against the infidels, war. Okay, that differs already from this first definition. Let's have a look at another one. War against unbelievers and the like. Let's take a look at another lexicon. To wage holy war against the infidels. Let's look at another one. Holy war against the infidels as a religious duty from a military point of view. To wage a holy war against unbelievers. Going forth to fight in the holy war. Strove, fought against, waged war against. Holy war, jihad. Does that make that clear? These are sourced from some of the most authoritative English Arabic lexicons. And it seems that the authors who wrote these lexicons and distribute them around the world didn't get the memo.
You want to exit full screen if you're done there?
Okay, I'll stop there for a moment, yeah.
Now, what I want to do here is show the Oxford English Dictionary here on screen, jihad, just so people can see this. A religious war of Muslims against unbelievers in Islam, inculcated as a duty by the Quran and traditions, okay? And a war or crusade for or against some doctrine, opinion, or principle, war to the death. And that is from the Oxford English Dictionary, the largest, most authoritative English dictionary in the world.
Right, and I used 7 different lexicons there. I can provide the link I can provide a link to online lexicons. We can add this to the Facebook show afterwards. I can offer that link. Remind me. I will post it. You can read those definitions for yourself. 7 different authoritative Arabic English lexicons that didn't get the memo that jihad just means to strive or struggle. In other words, go to the gym, eat less McDonald's, and, be a better person. Jihad has a very specific meaning. Yes, in the dictionary, it means to struggle. In the Sharia, and I'll get to that, it has a completely different meaning, which we've just elucidated. Okay, so let me go on then. So I will go. Can I share my screen again?
Yep.
Because I need to provide numerous different references. Again, people can check these for themselves. Okay. Okay, so there are 4 schools of jurisprudence, of Sunni jurisprudence. Okay. Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi, and Hanbali. So all of them teach that jihad is extreme and strenuous warfare in the path of Allah. Okay, call to the true religion and war to whoever refuses to accept it. Jihad is when a Muslim fights an infidel, fiercely fighting infidels or fighting infidels. Okay, so that Allah's word reigns supreme. Let's go down. Let us look at, make a note, war is deceit. Very often I will see comments about, from Mossad, by way of deceit, you will wage war. Well, Muhammad said the very same thing, and long before Mossad said it. Okay, that is the reference, Bukhari 52-269, in the book called Fighting for the Cause of Allah, Jihad, Hadith 269, volume 4. Okay, so notice, I want to talk about jihad. I want to show you all of the references. Now, again, Lars mentioned the pledges of Aqaba. Lars did mention that. He said that, look at the first, now he spoke of the second pledge and then quoted the first pledge. Now, this is the life of Muhammad, the Sira. This is his official Islamic biography, page 208. When Allah gave permission to fight to his apostle at the second oath of allegiance at Aqaba, it contained conditions involving war, which were not in the first act of fealty. Muhammad's followers bound themselves to wage war against all and sundry for Allah and his apostle. He promised them for faithful service the reward of paradise. Make a note of that. That comes straight out of, these words can never be changed. This is what it is. The second pledge is about war against all and sundry. Now, Tafsir Jalalain, one of the authoritative tafsirs, notice this. Do the people of the towns, the deniers, feel secure from the coming of our might, our chastisement upon them at night while they are sleeping, unaware of it? Other quotes, if non-Muslims submit to conversion or subjugation, this call, dawah, can be pursued peacefully. If they do not, Muslims are obliged to wage war against them. In Islam, peace requires that non-Muslims submit to the call of Islam, either by converting, by accepting the status of a religious minority, a dhimmi. A dhimmi is actually a semi-slave, and paying the imposed poll tax. It is actually tribute called jizya. World peace, the final stage of the dawah, is reached only with the conversion or submission of all of mankind to Islam. That is Islamic peace, when the entire world. This is Bassam Tibi, War and Peace in Islam, 1998. That's page 130. So now let me go through. This is from the Reliance of the Traveler. I will quote a different Sharia manual later, a Hanafi Sharia manual, which says precisely the same thing. Fighting for the cause of Allah, Jihad, chapter 9. Jihad means to wage war against non-Muslims and is derived from the word mujahada, signifying warfare to establish the religion. The scriptural basis, and I'll get to the lesser and greater jihad, the scriptural basis is taken from Quranic verses such as fighting is prescribed for you. Slay them wherever you find them. Fight the idolaters utterly. Those are Quran 2:216, 4:89, and 9:36. And such hadiths as the one related by Bukhari and Muslim that says, I've been commanded to fight the people until they testify that there's no God but Allah and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. It says here in the Sharia that jihad is obligatory. Jihad is a communal obligation defined in C 3.2. When enough people perform it, it is no longer obligatory upon others. C 32. This is a second distinction between obligatory acts is made on the basis of who is called to perform them, namely whether an act is personally or communally obligatory. So A communally obligatory act is what the lawgiver requires from the collective, not from each of them, such that if someone undertakes it, then the obligation has been fulfilled and the responsibility of non-performance is lifted from the rest. Now, for this, I need to go to a different reference. I'm going to use a different Sharia manual. Just need to move this because I really need to drive this point home. Now, these words are taken. So the Muslim Brotherhood is an organization that has at least 100 million members. Their main imam has a weekly show. He gets 60 million members that tune in every week. I know you'd love to have those numbers, Jan. So the author of the Majma al-Anar fi Shar Muntaka al-Abar, in describing, so this is Hassan al-Banna of the Muslim Brotherhood. Now, something that I hear constantly is, what about the KKK? First of all, the KKK is irrelevant. They have less than 6,000 members in a country with 350 million people. This man, his organization has at least 60 million people listening to what they say every week. 6,000, less than 6,000 members. The Women's National Basketball Association has more members than the KKK has. They're irrelevant. They don't hold territory. They don't run the government. They are utterly, they're ridiculous, right? No one takes them seriously. So it says, in describing the rules of jihad according to the Hanafi school, he said, jihad linguistically, dictionary definition, means to exert one's utmost effort in word and action. In the Sharia, it is the fighting of the unbelievers. In the Sharia, it is the fighting. All possible efforts are necessary to dismantle the power of the enemies of Islam, including beating them, plundering their wealth, destroying their places of worship, and smashing their idols. This is ISIS. This is what they did. So this means that jihad is to strive to the utmost to ensure the strength of Islam by fighting those who fight you and the dhimmis. Okay, it is fard, obligatory, to fight with the enemies. So we, as people who do not accept Allah and Muhammad, we are the enemies of Islam. The Imam must send a military expedition to the Dar al-Harb, that's the house of war, every year, at least once or twice, and the people must support him in this. And now we're going to talk about those packs of lone wolves that have been plaguing the West. If some of the people fulfill the obligation, the remainder are released from the obligation. If this fard kifaya, communal obligation, cannot be fulfilled by that group, then responsibility lies with the closest adjacent group, and then the closest after that. And if the fard kifaya cannot be fulfilled except by all the people, then it becomes fard ain, an individual obligation. Those are our packs of lone wolves committing jihad. If the enemy conquers any territory of Islam or any regions of it, it becomes fard ain. Okay, and the woman and the slave shall go forth without the permission of the husband or master. In the same way, the child shall go forth without the permission of the parents. This is formally how jihad is defined. I will go back up here. So, any questions so far, Jan? I need to go to one or two more references.
No, I'm just
any questions?
I'm just following along. I don't see any questions from the audience here yet either.
Okay, so let me go back up to the top. I need to find. So let's have a look. What are the objectives of jihad? This is from the Reliance of the Traveler. So we just looked at the Hanafi manual. Now we're looking at the Shafi Sharia manual. The Caliph makes war upon Jews, Christians, and Zoroastrians, provided he has first invited them to enter Islam in faith and practice.
Highlight those just to help the audience see it. Yeah, there you go.
Let me just... The Caliph makes war upon Jews, Christians, and Zoroastrians. In other words, they ask you to become Muslim, and if you say no, then they make war on you. Fight those who do not believe in Allah on the last day, and who forbid not what Allah and His Messenger have forbidden, who do not practice the religion of truth. It says here, just fight them because they don't practice Islam. The poll tax is tribute. Okay? So those are some of the references that I needed to mention. Okay, now I will need to find another reference. So let us go back to the Hanafi manual. Okay, these are some of this is what was quoted by Hassan al-Banna. Many Muslims today mistakenly believe that fighting the enemy is jihad asghar, a lesser jihad, and that fighting one's ego is jihad akbar, a greater jihad. And what he tells us is the following is quoted as proof. We have returned from the lesser jihad to embark on the greater jihad. Okay? And it says the greater jihad is the one against one's ego. Now, the greater jihad is overcoming your inhibition to kill. The lesser jihad is going out to kill. So the narration is used by some to lessen the importance of fighting. Okay? But this narration is not a Sahih tradition or sound tradition. It is a weak tradition. Okay? Al-Bayhaqi transmitted it with a weak chain of narrators. So it is not a sound tradition. It cannot stand on its own. There is no supporting evidence for it. It's supported to soften the message to the masses. It says, well, actually, it's a, no, but this statement cannot stand on its own because it is a weak hadith. It is a weak chain of narration. It is unable to stand on its own. Then there's one more thing. So I'll move over because I really want to demonstrate now. If you go to the hadith collections, these are the major hadith collections. Bukhari, okay? Bukhari wrote us a hadith collection, military expeditions led by the Prophet, okay? Let's have a look here. This is Muslim, the second most authoritative. This is sunnah.com. You can find this yourself, okay? The book of Jihad and Expeditions.
And again, if the Islamic sources are wrong, blame them. Don't attack
then Islam
Lloyd
is wrong.
For quoting them.
And all of this is about warfare. None of it is about eating more salads, going to the gym, or being nicer to people. Not one. Okay?
Eating more salads.
Okay? Again, we have your jihad. Okay? All of these, and you can go through these, are about warfare. All of these are about fighting. And of course, we have Sunan Abu Dawud as well. So the four of the major collections, hadith collections, are Kitab al-Jihad, is all about jihad. Jihad, if you read through these, you will find that it is about fighting. And I quoted the Sharia showing that jihad is very much about fighting. So I have to ask if, is that definition that I put up on screen earlier, is this correct?
Obviously not, no. I mean, that's definitely a simplified, watered down version for, people to absorb in other countries who haven't read these texts. And when you bring them up, they'll attack you for it. That seems to be the main force behind that jihad.
Correct. Also, notice in Islam, there is a distinction. Not equal of those believers who sit at home and receive no hurt. Okay, to those who strive and fight in the cause of Allah with their goods and their persons. Allah hath granted a higher grade to those who strive and fight. Okay, now, also, we need to know about verse 9:5 in these verse. Okay, chapter 9, is the last full chapter of the Quran. It is called a Tawbah, which means the ultimatum. And 9:5, and in fact, chapter 9 is the most violent chapter of the Quran. When the sacred months have passed, slay the idolaters wherever you find them, take them captive and besiege them. Okay, I've been commanded to fight the people. Okay, and notice now, this is from the Tafsir Ibn Kathir. The ayah 9:5 was called the ayah of the sword. It abrogated every agreement of peace between the Prophet and any idolater, every treaty and every term. Ibn Abbas, who was the most famous of the Tafsir commenters, said, no idolater had any more treaty or promise of safety ever since the surah was revealed.
Now, go back to 9:5 there. That's the whole quote there? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so between the Prophet and any idolater. Now, mine says, but when the forbidden months are past, then fight and slay the pagans wherever ye find them.
Agreed. These will differ from Quran to Quran. For instance, now there are translations that are, shall we say, softened in their meanings. For instance, when we talk about deception within Islam, right? They will talk about you'll say, they plotted or they planned or they schemed, and Allah schemed, and Allah is the best of schemers, the best of planners, the best of plotters. But when you go to the Arabic, just take the Arabic, paste it into Google. 90% of the time it works great. That word, without going into specific detail right now, is makara or makr. Okay, Allah's a makara. He uses makr, deception. When you go to Lane's lexicon, for instance, and when you go to Lane's lexicon and you actually look at this word, it is deception. There's no doubt. It's not ambiguous. It is deception. It is to lie. And I'll go through the details. I have some notes prepared for that. Here's a list of some resources you might find useful. Okay, QuranIndex.net, QuranX.com, very, very useful website. Here is an Arabic English lexicon you can go to. I've had Jihad preloaded here. Okay. And while that's loading, and then of course we can word search in the Quran. So these are this Quran.com. So these are some very useful resources. This brings up all of these lexicons. Okay. And you can find strived, fought, waged war against. Okay. So you can go through and there's a whole list of these in Arabic as well. So sometimes the words have been altered in the English translations to make them a little more palatable to the West, or to people reading them so it doesn't seem as violent. Any comments or questions there?
No, and none from the audience either. If they have any questions, they're not posting them up there.
Okay, so verse 9:5, a couple things. So we have slay the idolaters wherever you find them. Okay, then we have 9:6. Okay, those who don't submit will be killed. Okay, don't make treaties with non-Muslims. Treat converts to Islam, but kill those who refuse to convert. Okay, 9:12, fight the disbeliever. Allah's on your side. 9:23, don't make friends with your disbelieving family members. Okay, these are things you can look for. You can read that chapter for yourself.
Wow, that's entirely different than the Bible. The Bible says if your wife is a non-believer, your belief can, I forget the quote exactly, but your belief can help her through or whatever. And good grief.
Right,
all right.
Correct. So there are some significant. So there's some. Okay, on 9:30. Fighting the Jews and Christians is legislated. This is Tafsir Ibn Kathir on verse 9:30. Okay, fighting the Jews and Christians is legislated because they are idolaters and disbelievers. We are considered idolaters. We worship the cross. We worship idols of Jesus, for argument's sake. They see that as idolatry, right? Don't forget so Allah the Exalted encourages the believers to fight the polytheists. We worship Jesus, God, and Mary, according to what's in the Quran.
So they say the Trinity makes it, polytheism.
Yeah, correct. Disbelieving Jews and Christians uttered this terrible statement against Allah. Okay,
terrible utter lies against Allah.
Yeah, they claimed Uzair was the son of God, and the Christians. Okay, so I'll stop there. I think I've said plenty. But I've taken from various sources. These are this is the Sharia. So at the end of the day, there's one more that I can quote, which I'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, any questions, Jan?
I was wondering if you wanted to, compare, or should we wait till the next episode if you want to compare Jesus to Muhammad? There's some points that we haven't covered yet. I guess, we did cover Elohim, and we did Allah, the Nabatean God.
Okay, so I'll skip the section on jihad for now. There's more that I can cover. There's actually
we probably have 10 minutes left since we started late.
That's fine. No. Let's keep going with as you stated. But you're right. I think I've made that point, and there's more if I need to do that. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to. Should I share my screen again? Yeah.
Sure. Go
Perhaps
ahead.
I should do that. Okay. Now, thanks for letting me go on that long monologue.
No worries.
But I really wanted to hammer that point home, and there's significantly more that I could cover. But okay, let us compare the founders. Okay. Not the followers. I will discuss the followers in brief, but let us talk about the founders. This is something that one can also. Let's look at Jesus versus Muhammad. Okay, according to the doctrine that we have in the Bible, the Quran, and the other books, Jesus did not kill anyone. Muhammad is estimated to have killed 3,000 people himself. Jesus led no armies. Okay, Muhammad led armies and he fought in anywhere from 66 to 100 battles and raids. That number varies, but those are the numbers that we do have. Jesus did not own slaves. Muhammad took 1/5 of all slaves captured in battle as booty, and he owned numerous dozens of slaves. Jesus never married. Muhammad had anywhere from 11 to 22 wives, 11 at one time, up to 22 wives over his career as and then the youngest of whom was 6 years old. Now, someone tried to front load that one by claiming she was 18 or something, but I can get into lengthy detail about her age. There's numerous Quranic references, or numerous references to her being 6 and 9 when they consummated the marriage. Jesus did not torture anyone. Muhammad, when he conquered Khaybar, or Khubr, as it said when I was in Saudi, the last Jewish settlement in Arabia, he tortured the chief, Kinana, K-I-N-A-N-A, because he wouldn't say where the treasure was hidden. He built a fire on his chest. Jesus never lied. Muhammad permitted lying, okay? He did also say war, as I showed earlier, war is deceit. And this is a subject worth covering, possibly another show, because we may well run out of time, but we can cover the issue of Islamic deceit. I will briefly cover that towards the end. Okay. Jesus did not order assassinations, and we can read several accounts in the Hadith of Muhammad having men, women, and children killed, assassinated. He ordered their deaths, okay, including a baby at one point that was killed. Okay, Jesus never forced conversions. Now, some of his disciples left him. Okay, he allowed them to go. In Islam, if you turn away from Islam, the penalty is death. That's apostasy. Muhammad forced conversions, and he said, whoever changes his Islamic religion, kill him. Again, we can go into detail. I can cite all the references for that. Jesus forgave insults. Forgive them, they know not what they do. This is called Sab al-Rasul, and it is avenged in Islam. And people who do that can be killed. People were assassinated. There are examples of those in the Hadiths. Jesus did not allow rape. Muhammad allowed rape of captured women, even if married. I had a lengthy discussion with someone last week about that very thing. It was a huge debate. No apostle was a governor or a general. The caliphs were all governors and generals, and all went to war and killed people. Jesus said God is the Father. Muhammad said, this is blasphemy. You are Allah's slave. God is not your father. Jesus said, we are children of God. Muhammad said, Allah cannot have a wife. This is blasphemy. Jesus said, we are made in the image of God. And here, Allah has no image. And we know what happened at Charlie Hebdo for publishing images of just Muhammad. Never mind images of Allah. Jesus said we have a personal relationship with God. In Islam, that is not the case. That is blasphemy. In the first 300 years of Christianity, Christians were fed to lions. In the first 300 years of Islam, they conquered from Arabia to Paris. And then Jesus died on the cross. Repentance leads to salvation. And for Muhammad, this was the crime of shirk, the unforgivable sin. Okay? So now, oddly enough, Allah claims to have no partners, but he's the only eternal one, yet he has these eternal tablets from which the Quran was taken, right, and given to Muhammad, these eternal tablets that exist in heaven with him. But also, if you remove Muhammad from Islam, you're only left with 14% of the original text. Muhammad constitutes 86% of the text. And I want to do one more thing, since I did mention, again, these are opportunities for us to continue in detail at another point, but I will show one more thing. There are 6 forms of, in terms of the doctrine of Islam, for sacred lying, which is this here. There's taqiyya, okay, which is Shia, but it's called mudrat for the Sunnis, tactical deceit for the purposes of spreading Islam, kitman, tawriya, taysir, darura. These 3 are probably the most common. Deceit by ambiguity. Taysir is ease and necessity. Taysir and darura. Ease, in other words, you can forego all of the tenets of Islam. You can not observe all of the tenets of Sharia just so that you can get along. Deceit through necessity and muruna. So there are 6 different forms. Okay, I'll pause there. Anything from you, Jan?
No.
So these are now, actually, hold on. Let me give one more quote. I will just read this.
You know, another
Okay,
point, just really quickly, the comparison between Jesus' apostles and the apostles of Muhammad. Why don't you mention that really quick?
Jesus raised someone from the dead. Muhammad did precisely the opposite.
And all of Jesus's apostles were killed, and all of Muhammad's apostles were killers.
Correct. I mean, let's have a look at the, so finally from me, now obviously a lot of what I've said here can be expanded in detail, and I can go into length with those things, but I wanted to raise these issues for people to consider. But let's consider Abu Bakr, the first caliph. Some accounts say he died of sickness. Other accounts say he was poisoned. Okay, these are the first four rightly guided caliphs, the Rashidun caliphs. Umar ibn Khattab, he was killed by a Persian slave. He was stabbed 6 times while praying. Ali ibn Abi Talib, he was assassinated. Okay, he was stabbed to death in 661 after a siege. Okay, this is Muhammad's son, Ali. Then we have, there's Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman. Uthman, he's the one who collected, he was stabbed to death after a siege, So he's the one who collected all of the Qurans together that were extant. He then had it rewritten, redistributed, and destroyed all of the previous texts. But that's an interesting discussion on its own. So Abu Bakr possibly poisoned, according to some accounts. Umar ibn Khattab killed by a Persian slave, stabbed. Uthman, stabbed to death after a siege. Ali, assassinated in 661. And Aisha, Muhammad's wife, she fought Ali. She captured Basra with her army. She executed 640 people, and she tortured the governor. Ali defeated Aisha at the Battle of the Camel. 10,000 Muslims died. She died apparently at 67 on 16 July 678. Reports say she may have been killed by a man called Muawiyah, who then succeeded Ali. This is the fate of the people closest to Muhammad, his followers. I mean, these were all violent deaths, or potentially violent deaths. So it's a very, very different example when we compare those two. And I mean, this is something, again, that merits deeper investigation.
Indeed it does. Have we, somebody points out Jesus' apostles needed constant reminder of their faith. And but they weren't killed for, I mean, like Peter, for example, you'll betray me 3 times by the cock's crow, Yeah,
they were human, but I mean, these people led armies, they killed thousands, they died violent deaths. So how, if we consider these definitions, is this a religion of peace? And it says in the definitions I gave, it is peace when the entire world submits to Islam. And
right.
Islam
it's not peace by everyone living and seeking truth as God or Logos. It's peace through submission to the Quran and to Islam, and not, it's entirely it's the antithesis, really, of Christianity and peace through truth.
Correct. That is a very, very different approach to. So how can it be the same now? How could it be the same God? How can Allah be the same as Yahweh? There is no comparison, no difference. There's
no similarity. I think
no similarity. Yeah. So there's a huge difference between the two. So last week, I'm trying not to get too, shall we say, too deep and scholarly yet now. Now that I've covered essentially all the topics and I've introduced everything that I think is relevant, obviously some of these can be expanded. One can talk in depth about the behavior of Muhammad, right? One can talk about women. One can talk about Islamic deception, the makr and makara. And I can even go deeper into the whole aspect of jihad. But I hope that I've made my point. And if there's any questions, I'd love to hear from everyone.
And, and speaking of questions, Abu is polite as the debate went on. We appreciate cordial, polite discussion. I don't want to see any more name calling. Anybody who's in the comments when I post this up to YouTube, if they're name calling, etc., I will just ban them. Most of those were troll accounts. Again, if you folks need to hide behind a troll account to make your point, maybe you should consider the validity of your argument before you do so. So, again, it's if Christianity is about living in truth, then why are people, name calling, lying, spinning attacks against you and myself, for that matter, calling you, Christian Zionist, Jewish Zionist, chimp, monkey, idiot, stupid, all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And repeatedly, nobody could post real and cogent arguments. So, we want to see cogent, cited arguments, challenge the information, don't attack the messenger. We've been putting out the Trivium method for over 9 years. I expect the audience to use citations and actual support. I don't care about your opinions or what you think. If you cannot back your argument with facts and citations, please do not put it forth.
Yeah. Let me answer one other question that came up. Someone posted, but the best deed in Islam. Okay. And they quoted, what is the best deed? He replied, to offer prayers at their fixed times. Someone posted that. Now, if you go, what is next in goodness? To be good and dutiful to your parents, because he left that part out. And of course, he left out the third one. I further asked, what is next in goodness? He replied, to participate in jihad in Allah's cause. Sahih Bukhari 2782. That's book 56, hadith 1. So one needs to ask, and in fact, you can find there's other hadith, Bukhari 2784. We consider jihad as the best deed. Should we not fight in Allah's cause? Okay, so people are doing partial posts. They're taking a partial quote,
straw man arguments,
and then they are posting that as a complete argument. It is not. So, for instance, Imam Ghazali is considered the most famous Muslim theologian and philosopher of all time after Muhammad, and he talks about deception to attain goals and prosperity. This is in the Sharia. This is in the Sharia, Islamic sacred law. Speaking is a means to achieve objectives. If a praiseworthy aim is attainable through both telling the truth and lying, it is unlawful to accomplish it through lying. But when it is possible to achieve such an aim by lying, but not by telling the truth, it is permissible to lie if attaining the goal is permissible. You can lie if that will keep you from evil or if it will result in prosperity. That's in the Sharia.
And in Christianity, in John 8:44, and I can pull that up here. Let me just pull that up just to show people. John 8:44. All right, here we go. Let me pull this over and share that. All right, and this is about lying. You belong to your father, the devil, and you want to carry out the desires of your father. He was a murderer from the beginning and has never stood for truth, since there is no truth in him. Whenever he tells a lie, he speaks in character, because he is a liar and the father of lies. So in Christianity, lying is Satanism and of the devil. So, it's significantly different, and the New Testament reiterates this. I think
this is something that's worth exploring in depth.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, this is something definitely. This is definitely something worth exploring in depth. I wanted to introduce, because last week I introduced the subjects I wanted to discuss. This week I think I've completed that, so that except for talking about women, I'm going to do one last thing. You guys see my screen here?
Yep.
Now, the Quran often translates this word to schemed or plot or plan. And they, the disbelievers, schemed, and Allah schemed against them. Quran 3:54. And Allah is the best of schemers. The Arabic word here for scheme or plot or plan is makara, and literally means deceit. Now, if we go look online, it says here, to practice deceit, guile, or circumvention, desiring to do another a foul and an abominable or an evil action, clandestinely or without their knowing. So if makr is the actual word that should replace this word schemed, why was it changed? Why aren't they just quoting the original Arabic word? So this states that Allah is the best of deceivers. I mean, that is a really, one needs to think about that. He practiced an evasion, a shift, an artifice, a contriver, a machination, a trick, a plot, a stratagem. So sure, one can take many of these, but the actual word here is deceit. That's the first word listed, deceit. Something to bear in mind. And this is, I would challenge people to stop and think about, that Quran. How accurate is it? How faithful is it to the original?
Now, unfortunately, Bahare just managed to show up, and I'm going to upload this to YouTube, and hopefully I'll get that done right away here. But unfortunately, and Bahare, you and Abu were the only two people who were cordial and polite last week.
Well, I enjoyed the chat with Abu. I need to thank him for really in-depth and really good conversation. I enjoyed that.
And I appreciate the both of you being the only two cordial people. And, so much appreciated for that. We will upload this to YouTube and ask that everybody be cordial and polite. Again, we will not allow any name calling and all the stuff that happened last week. But I think you've made your case quite well. I think, everybody here should know the trivium by now. Again, please supply your citations and direct quotes, just as Lloyd has done. And Bahare says, tardy to the party as usual. But anyway, thank you, everyone. I think this is a good place to stop. Unfortunately, she just barely made the last 2 minutes of the show. Unfortunately, I didn't see Abu show up tonight. But I'll look forward to reading your comments and hopefully seeing more polite behavior this coming week as we prepare for the show for part 3 for next week. And that should be a good place to wrap it up. And
if I could get everyone's questions, I think I've introduced this. If I can just get everyone's questions, ask me what they'd like me to expand on. And,
you know what? Polygonal had asked a question here. He says, rabbis, and you may not be able to answer this, but rabbis have said that Islam is the broom of the Talmudic Judaism. What do they mean by this? It is said that Muhammad is descended from Ishmael, and Jews see non-Jews as soulless, non-human, and Islam seems to grant the slaughter of non-Muslims. Could Islam be a creation of Talmudic Judaism?
Look, I mean, this is beyond
the point
scope I want to do. It's look, a lot of people have tried to lure me into their specific conspiracy theory. Now, it may be true. Look, I had someone say it's based on Catholicism. The Catholic Church did it. I mean, it could be Martians. What do I know? Right? Right now, it is what it is. It differs significantly from Christianity. I think we've demonstrated. It differs significantly from Judaism. And in fact, I can do an entire segment just on the whole story of the Jews, because in Islam, it is compulsory and obligatory that all of the Jews be killed to bring about the end times. If you thought Islam hated Christians, man, they need to wipe out every Jew on the face of the planet.
Right. Well, you know what? I would just like to see people start following truth and natural law. My goodness. I mean, enough stuff already. That's just such a glaring difference between the religions. And anyway, anything else to add? Somebody asked about 9/11. We don't want to go into that. That's not what this is about. But anyway, any other questions people have for tonight before we wrap it up here? So I'm going to presume that the show next week will be through Patreon and this thing, if not, some other platform. But, we had talked about moving the show over to Patreon anyway. They may consider this episode against their policy because we're actually discussing facts about Islam. They don't allow talk about anything Christian or truth-based or whatever, and if you're white or conservative or anything, apparently that's illegal discussion these days.
This is I think more political discussion and military in terms of what impacts us as Westerners in a political level. We're not discussing what color beard God has, which is entirely irrelevant to the issue.
Yeah. Does truth have a beard at all? And so, all right. Well, that looks like a good place to wrap it up. And thank you, everybody, for participating who made it here. Sorry for the confusion. And whatnot, and see you all next week.
Thank you very much.
Good night.